The email came in at 9:17 a.m., just as I was pouring my second cup of coffee. Subject: Promotion Announcement, Jared Summers. I stared at the screen, blinking twice. Jared? The same Jared who'd asked me to review the quarterly forecast presentation last week, the one I spent 3 nights cleaning up. I opened the PDF attached. There it was. My data, my formatting, my insights, his name. My pulse quickened. Guess hard work pays off, huh? Jared grinned as he strolled past my cubicle with a Starbucks in hand. His voice was coated in that smug tone I'd grown to despise. I didn't respond. What was I going to say? That the guy everyone loved had stolen my work and called it his own? No one would believe it. They never did. Jared had the charm, the handshake, the jokes. I had spreadsheets. Back in my office, I closed the email, but the damage was done. I felt that familiar hollow tightening in my chest. For 10 years, I'd kept my head down, delivered results, stayed away from politics, and for what? I didn't have time to process it, though. My phone buzzed. Brooks? It's Mercy General. I'm sorry. There's been an accident. An 18-wheeler, Highway 77, black ice. My parents never made it out of the wreck. 2 days later, I stood in a sterile room beside a coroner's table, signing documents with shaking hands. My brother Spencer arrived late in a black coat that probably cost more than my car. He offered a brief hug, wiped an invisible tear, and started asking questions about the estate before we even left the building. "Do you think Mom and Dad left the lake house to me or both of us?" he asked, checking his reflection in the rearview mirror. "I don't know," I murmured. The will was read the following Monday. I braced for grief. I wasn't ready for betrayal. To Spencer Anderson, the lawyer read, "We leave the family home and all personal assets in Lincoln, Nebraska." My heart dropped. To Brooks Anderson, our eldest son, we leave the property in Cold Ridge, Montana. Cold Ridge? I repeated. "A house," the lawyer said, "along with all its contents." I sat still. I hadn't even known they owned property in Montana. Spencer leaned back with a smirk. "Well, I guess you've always liked the rustic life," he said. "Hope you enjoy the mountain views." I drove home in silence, barely hearing Ellen's voice as I explained the will. She went from confused to furious in seconds. "You mean to tell me your younger brother got the house, the accounts, everything, and you got, what, a cabin in the woods?" "I didn't want to fight," I said quietly. "Maybe it was their decision." "No," she snapped. "It was your cowardice, and I'm tired of living with a man who lets the world walk all over him." That night, she packed my things. "Go to Montana," she said, standing at the doorway like a judge. "Don't come back until you're something more than a footnote." So I left. Now here I was, 4 states away, standing in front of a collapsed porch with keys that barely turned and questions I didn't know how to ask. The pine air was sharp, the silence suffocating. The house looked like it hadn't been touched in decades. But as the wind brushed past and my boots crunched on gravel, I felt something stir. Like this broken place held answers no spreadsheet ever could. I reached for the door. It creaked open, and the house exhaled. If you've ever felt like the quiet one in the family got left behind, type 1. You're not alone. The rusted lock snapped with a click, and the carved oak door creaked open into a chamber no bigger than a walk-in closet. What I saw inside stopped my breath. Rows of dusty shelves lined with pottery etched in symbols I didn't recognize. An eagle feather headdress hung high on the wall, pristine despite the age of the room. A leather-bound journal lay atop a wooden chest, engraved with a wolf howling under a crescent moon. I dropped to my knees. The air inside was thick with time, not just dust, but something else. Memory. I opened the journal with trembling fingers. The first page read, in careful cursive, "To those who carry the blood of the Lakota, preserve, protect, and never forget." Signed, Joseph Anderson, August 15th, 1947, my grandfather. The next few hours vanished as I devoured the pages. His entries spoke of my great-grandfather, Wakan Tanka, a spiritual leader in the Lakota tribe, who had hidden these artifacts to protect them from being seized during forced relocations. The headdress had been worn in rainmaking ceremonies. The drum still reverberated when tapped, as if it remembered. The vases held ashes of warriors lost in battle. This wasn't just family history, it was erasure undone. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat cross-legged on the wooden floor, reading by flashlight, overwhelmed by grief and awe. For so long, I'd believed I was just a paper pusher from Nebraska. But here, in this forgotten corner of Montana, something ancient had called me home. In the morning, I called Tom Holloway, an old friend from college who now taught archaeology at the University of Montana. I kept the call brief. "I found something," I said. "I need you to see it." When he arrived, he stepped into the chamber and froze. His mouth parted slightly. He whispered, "Brooks, do you know what you're sitting on?" "I'm still trying to figure it out." "These artifacts," he said, kneeling beside a ceremonial pipe, "they're extraordinary, priceless. If authenticated, this could change how we understand this region's history." I felt uneasy. "They're not for sale." Tom glanced at me. "I didn't say that, but someone will. You need to secure this place." The next day, my brother showed up. A black Escalade pulled into the gravel driveway, tires crackling like firewood. Spencer stepped out in loafers and sunglasses, grinning like he owned the sky. "Heard you found some kind of hidden treasure," he said, walking straight into the house like it was his. "Who told you?" "Tom mentioned something to a donor friend. Word spreads, Brooks." He paused. "Let's talk. These artifacts, they're worth a fortune. Sell a few, we both win. I'll even give you back the Lincoln House." I stared at him. "They're not objects, they're sacred." He scoffed. "Oh, come on, you barely knew any of this stuff last week. Don't turn into a martyr now." "They belong to the tribe," I said firmly. "They're not ours to profit from." Spencer's smile vanished. "You'll regret this. You always do." Later that evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Ellen. "Heard from Spencer. You really found something? Call me." I didn't reply. Instead, I went back into the chamber, sat beside the drum, and listened. Not to the room, but to the silence between memories. If someone ever tried to take what you protected, just because they thought you were too soft to fight back, type 2, you're not alone. The HR email came in at 8:03 a.m. Subject, Organizational Restructure, Role Transition Notice. I stared at it for a full minute before clicking open. Due to shifting priorities, your current role is being merged into a new strategic division. Your duties will be reassigned under Jared Summers, effective immediately. Jared, again. The same Jared who stole my forecast deck, the same Jared who got promoted using my data, then repackaged it for a diversity leadership campaign he barely understood. Now, he was my manager. I closed my laptop without replying. For the first time in my life, I didn't send a carefully worded response. I didn't ask for clarification. I didn't fight, because I no longer belonged there. I stood up, walked out of the office, and didn't look back. Back in Montana, the lawsuit was picking up speed. Spencer had filed for co-ownership of the house, claiming our parents' will was open to interpretation. His lawyers sent notice that the artifacts should be legally appraised and potentially liquidated to ensure fair division of assets. It was laughable and infuriating. I brought the letter to Samuel Black Elk, who studied it with a long silence before speaking. "He doesn't see them as spirit," Samuel said. "Only dollar signs." "I'm tired," I admitted. "He keeps pushing. Ellen keeps calling. And now Jared." Samuel stopped me with a raised hand. "You are not tired, Brooks. You are transforming, and transformation always burns." The court date was set in Billings. I wore the shirt rose-white deer embroidered for me, a soft blue with stitched patterns of water and wind. Samuel came with me. So did Thomas Redhawk and 3 members of the local council. Spencer showed up in a charcoal suit and designer shoes. He looked confident, polished, every bit the man who always won. But when he saw the crowd behind me, elders, students, even local journalists, his smirk twitched. I took the stand first. I spoke slowly, clearly, not from notes, but from memory. I told them about the artifacts, my grandfather's journal, the cultural center we'd built, how these weren't items for sale, but pieces of a fractured identity we were trying to heal. I'm not protecting these things because they're valuable, I said. I'm protecting them because they're sacred, because if we sell everything to the highest bidder, we lose more than property, we lose who we are. Spencer testified next. He talked about fairness, about monetary value, about shared inheritance. But his words sounded flat, empty. He kept glancing toward me, like he couldn't quite figure out who I had become. In the end, the judge ruled in my favor. The will was clear. The Montana property and all its contents belonged to me, and more importantly, my stewardship of the cultural heritage was recognized as sincere and significant. Outside the courtroom, Spencer passed me without a word. His shoulders were stiff, but as he opened his car door, he looked back just once and said, "You really think this changes anything?" I met his eyes. It already has. Weeks later, the cultural center opened under the summer sun. Drums echoed across the valley. Elders shared stories, children laughed, and I stood at the front steps, no longer a man hiding behind spreadsheets. That night, Ellen arrived. She stood at the edge of the gathering, arms folded, lips tight. "You really gave it all up," she said. "The house, the career, even me." I looked at the firelight dancing across the faces of the kids who now knew their tribe's language, their grandmother's weaving, their grandfather's songs. "I didn't give it up," I said quietly. "I found what mattered more." She stepped closer, eyes cold. "One day, you'll regret this." I turned to her, calm. "Maybe. But I'd rather regret walking away from money than walking away from meaning." She said nothing, then left, heels clicking against gravel. If you've ever chosen truth over comfort, even when no one clapped, type 3. You're not alone in that fire.